Morning and welcome to Resilient Lincolnshire. Um, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Resilient Lincolnshire Business Beyond the Curve. I'm Changa, one of the lecturers, and also I'm the college digital lead for the Lincoln International Business School. Today, I will be your host for this event. Resilient Lincolnshire is streaming live simultaneously across Facebook, LinkedIn, and our YouTube channel. Today, we are hosting episode 13 of the series called Business Beyond the Curve. This form an integral part of Resilient Lincolnshire, which was conceptualized in partnership with the Centre for Resilience. Our interview today explores student experience with digital learning and what learnings there are to support their transition. Joining me today in the panel, we have three students: Hugo Hilton. He is a student at Lincoln Christ Hospital School, currently studying BTech, Applied Science and Business. We also have Van Ann Dawn, who's also known as Vivian, and Hannah Primanava, both students studying postgraduate degree in marketing at University of Lincoln. We also have invited two educationists, Glan Thompson, head teacher at Queen Elizabeth's Grammar School, Alford, a school with 450 years history. James Wadsworth, he's the head of quality improvement at Lincoln College. The discussion we will have will look into the pedagogical thoughts, practices, and vision, and how can we take advantage of the business mindset and technologies to help education sectors to move forward and be prepared for the future. So do please keep your comments and questions coming through, as we will get an opportunity to pick up some of these throughout the discussion. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in our panelists. So starting from Hugo. Hugo, would you like to say hello to our live audience?
Hello, my name is Hugo Hilton. I'm here today to speak about learning over quarantine and understanding how I've carried on through the process of learning and contact with my teachers through BTech Business and Applied Science.
Thank you, Hugo. And Hannah and Vivian?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Vivian. I'm currently studying MSc Marketing at the University of Lincoln. I also the member of Digital Student Ambassador Group with Hannah. Yeah, hello everyone.
Hi, my name is Hannah. I also study MSc Marketing at the University of Lincoln. I think today I would like to really learn about people's experiences of digital education. Yes.
Brilliant. Hi, Glen. Would you like to say hello to our live audience?
Hi, my name's Glen Thompson. I'm the head teacher of Queen Elizabeth Grammar School in Alford. And I'm really here to talk about my experiences of leading a school through the course of this and trying to maintain some sort of semblance of home learning as close to what students would receive in their normal day-to-day lives.
Thank you, Glen. And James, please.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm James Wadsworth. I'm from Lincoln College, where I'm head of quality improvement. I'm here to, similar to Glen, talk about how we've operated in these difficult times, but also how we're learning the lessons for future improvement and future delivery.
Thank you, everyone, for your self-introduction. I'm going to share my screen. So what our live audience will be seeing from their screen is all the panelists on the left side and then the slides that we've prepared. Okay, just bear with me for a second. Right, can we see the screen?
Yes, we can see it very clearly.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, okay. So we all know that after World Health Organization declared COVID-19 as a global pandemic, institutions had to stop learning and teaching activities with large numbers of masses for the purpose of suppressing the number of infections and the spread of the virus. There is no doubt that this has imposed a massive disruption to education globally. Campuses implemented complete shutdown of face-to-face teaching. This disruption also has affected across all education sectors. According to Statista, 80% of the world learners, or we can say 1.38 billion learners, including pre-primary, primary, lower secondary, upper secondary level of education, as well as the tertiary level, have been kept out of education institutions due to the pandemic. So this live discussion was formed through some inspiring conversations I've had with different education professionals, observation on students' learning, working with colleagues in the last few months to make agile adaptation on teaching, learning and assessment practices, and also the vision we hold of the future of education that we can co-create. So disruption is not actually a novelty word. It is a word that we should be familiar with over the human history, especially we look back over how businesses changed since the Industrial Revolution. And on this slide, as everyone can see, that business has kept evolving with the developing of the technology. We clearly can recognize the changes over the last few decades on the businesses listed above. As we speak, companies globally are developing artificial intelligence. Companies are designing machine learning, utilizing big data to explore as much business potential as they could. And as return, the fast-paced movement impacts on us on how we communicate, how we work, and how we should prepare ourselves to expect disruptions and to learn how to deal with disruptions. So with this in mind, I would like to briefly check with my panelists if they can see any digital divide in the education context they're from, whether it's digital perception, whether it's digital application. So who would like to share your opinion first?
If you don't mind, I'll gladly go first.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hugo.
So understanding digital divide in form of an A-level student is having access to maybe the internet at home and having access to computers maybe to continue with work, which some students may not have access to, which can be difficult for teaching as a teacher and learning as a student as well, which can be quite difficult.
It can be, yeah. And that is the reality, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We can never assume that everyone, even though I think that research has identified, and there's also debates around the digital natives, not necessarily that everyone is obviously familiar with this kind of disruption, as well as the adaptation we all have to make to form the new normal of learning and teaching. Thank you. Yeah. Who would like to say, expand on this?
Yeah, I'll support Hugo in that, if that's okay there, Chang, in that at Lincoln College we have found that in a minority of cases we do have some learners that don't have that access, as Hugo kind of pointed to there. Also on top of that, we are, I think education in general in this country is set up for a very different kind of delivery model, really, and we find that at college in that staff have had to adapt very quickly. And that's adaptation in terms of their working patterns, their technologies that they have at home to do sessions such as this. As you can see, I'm in at work today to do this session. But it's also the skills as well. And, you know, there's an assumption that staff have the necessary skills to undertake this sort of delivery and digital pedagogy, but also the skills of the learners and the students that they can, you know, that they just naturally know how to learn digitally. Well, they don't necessarily. So it's two things for me. It's the technology, but it's also the skills base as well.
Absolutely. And thank you, James. Glen, do you, from the secondary school sector, and your school is one of the best school, if not the first, if not the best school in whole Lincolnshire and in Eastern Midlands. Do you observe any digital divide at work?
I think our context is different to many because of where we are in the county and also the type of students we have. I think there's different types of divides. There's the digital divide in terms of the accessibility. We've been quite fortunate that the majority of our students have had good access to devices. However, the access to good Wi-Fi and the ability to stream has been a little bit more problematic further out in the rural nature of what we've got. And I think that there's also been a divide in terms of motivation. Different students have accessed it in different ways, and different people learn in different ways. And previously you've got an element of choice, and I think that the direction moving forward, you've got the choice in what you can actually choose as a method of learning. Or not, and a lot of people learn better face to face. I think one of the previous points was very interesting in terms of the skill set of staff that was made. For me, when you want your staff to be able to do something new, you would put in a training package. You would put in a well thought out series of interventions to actually support people who didn't get it quite as quickly, to allow them to be able to deliver in this new way. But we shut our school within 48 hours of getting the notice, and there was no opportunity to put in something that was well thought out before we shut. And it was literally throwing initiatives at a wall to see what would stick, because there was an awful lot to think about in a very short amount of time. And then once people were remote from each other, the ability to be able to do that divide with people in a platform and in a method with people who weren't necessarily as au fait with it as they would be. You've got to remember that when we train our staff, we train them to be teachers in the classroom. We're set up in a particular model, and we've gone to something radically different outside of the skill set of some of the people we've got. So I think it's mixed in terms of people's ability to deliver effectively as well.
Excellent. Thank you ever so much. I think other than the two digital divide I've suggested in terms of digital perception, digital application, you've also identified the accessibility, motivation, as well as the capabilities as well. So I think the digital divide really can be broken down into so many different categories. Thank you very much for your contribution. So to our students, Hannah and Vivian, would you like to share what you think about the digital divide?
Basically, I kind of agree with what the teachers have said, because being in an adapted workshop, I think earlier this week, where I was invited to observe how lecturers were planning for blended learning for next academic year, I think it's definitely that like learning how to adapt and learning how to actually implement those technologies might be a little bit out of comfort zone. So I feel like there should be some sort of kind of training in place for them to be able for them and for the students to actually embrace the digital technology.
Thank you, Hannah. What about you, Vivian?
Yes, I completely with what Hannah just said. Like in this very challenging time, from the university perspective, I also have to learn like new skill set or learn new device to, make use of the online learning resource to study more and to, shape my skill more in this challenging time. So a lot of things are changing, but also like there are a lot of more creative source and digital divide that have a lot and evolve to have with student learning. Yes.
Very good. And I think from all our panelists, we can say that yes, digital divide may exist, and depending on the education institutions and the different contexts. However, I think we're all trying to make good effort and then try to upskilling or taking the opportunity to share good practice, to observe what is going on out there. And then through this kind of process, we can try our best to bring the digital divide much closer, much narrower. Okay, thank you very much for your contribution. I'm just trying to find Right. Okay. So what really brings us to this live discussion is our common interest in education. Do we need to think about education we provide differently with what we have experienced? We have 3 students in this live discussion, 1 from a local secondary school, 2 from postgraduate studies of University of Lincoln. All of them are facing with the transition challenges. So for Hugo, your next year coming back to your school and also the following year going to the university, that probably is something that you're looking forward to, but at the same time, I don't know how you feel about that part of the future that you're going to walk into. And for our students, Vivian and Hannah, because they are at the moment doing their dissertation on their MSc studies, the postgraduate studies, the next stage for them is to getting into the employment. So both transitions for these 2 groups of students can be very, very important. It's critical moments in their life. So we put our students at our hearts, and that's why we adopt a student-centered approach to support, to engage, and to enable. In the following slides, let me just go on to the next slide. I think we'll start to share with our audience with more details about how our panelists see digital education mean to themselves and whether they recognize blended learning as a terminology. Through the discussion I've had with different professionals in different education institutions, it seems that blended learning may not have been widely used across the education institutions. So we can have a little bit of discussion about that. And also in terms of changes we've gone through in learning, teaching, assessment, what have taken place and how do we feel about it? Do we feel more confident comparing to what we have come from? And also we need to look at what does 2020, 2021, which is the next academic year, would look like for ourselves. Okay. So I'm going to leave this screen on for our panelist, Hugo from Lincoln Christ Hospital School. So Hugo, would you like to give our audience some examples of what has worked for you and for your probably classmates, your friends, and also what has worked in your school from what you observed, from the teachers' practice, and what further challenges you can see?
Yeah, so with interactive learning through my school, we do use a platform called Class Charts, and that allows the students to get set work from their teachers with a deadline, and it allows them to communicate us at the same time if there are any worries or concerns about the work or anything in general. It's easy contact, just a few clicks away, and it just allows the teachers to maintain their contact with students at the same time. So anyone in the school is able to contact all their subject teachers, and it helps a lot through the time of crisis and this lockdown.
Okay, so that has definitely gone well in terms of you have a digital platform where you can access the learning and teaching materials and also support should you need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And can you see any challenges or any changes that you would like to take place, possibly?
I do feel that teachers handling students that maybe haven't completed the work or aren't maintaining contact with different teachers, they will find it difficult to encourage them and give them the encouragement to complete work. But I feel that later on there will be some form of assistance that will be given to students that are finding work difficult, that kind of need that hands-on learning from teachers that they won't be getting at home.
Of course. In terms of the communication and collaboration, can I just ask, how do you normally contact your tutor? Is it by email, by messaging, or you may have an online virtual classroom? Because obviously, with you today with us in this discussion panel, we will have a window to observe what exactly is happening in the secondary school sector.
Yeah, so communication and collaboration with students and teachers is carried out by email, and class chats do have a form of message. So they teachers can use that to contact students and vice versa as well. So it's quite simple, really.
So did you have any training or any specific sort of instructions received from tutors you found quite easy to access these communication channels?
Yeah, so a few days before the school had shut down, we had been given a sheet which allows student-specific logins, and it gives you the correct subject teachers as well. So it allows you to contact. It shows you how to contact them if there are any concerns that need to be addressed.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And I think that is obviously sounds very positive. The effort your school has done, the teachers have obviously put into making the learning continuous is something that I think is helping the students to not to have extended pausing learning moments, but continuously carry on their study.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing
it's
that.
been brought through really well.
Okay, thank you. Right, okay. Does anybody have any question for Hugo from our panel? If not, we can move on to see some examples from our postgraduate students. Okay. So, Vivian, you've sent me this slide, and this summarizes your last year's participation in different learning activities and also the activities you are involved in different communities. Would you like to start your story?
Yes, of course. So this is my experience before the COVID-19 and now. Before that, the COVID-19, I have the chance to join DSEC group. The learning process take normal as is usual. I study in the university, join seminar, lecture, but then the COVID-19 just came. The learning process is at first is very unfamiliar in many ways. And the thing that I miss the most is human interaction. I mean, face-to-face interaction. And I just realized that there are a lot of things that I take for granted. It can be in our Lincoln Business School. We have a lot of international students. So this is also the opportunity for us to learn from everyone from every time zone, and we have to work together to work on some different subjects that require teamwork. And during the time, I also have the chance to learn and to, using the online sources to teach myself more digital skill and create my own website to save it as a portfolio for my future career. So yeah, this is also on the screen is my website, and together with the DSEC team, I also create blog posts, and we are just joining the LIPS International Teaching and Learning Conference, which is a great, valuable lesson for me. So I think looking back, the learning experience is very worthwhile. I think that I received more gain than I lost. I have to take ownership of what my experience and utilize on what I have. Yeah, so the experience is very worthwhile during the COVID-19 when I was in the university in this very challenging time. Yeah.
Excellent. It sounds like you've gained quite a lot of experience, not only throughout the whole academic year that you have studying on this program, but also especially in the last few months during the lockdown. Yes, there are obviously elements that you miss in your life, the face-to-face contacts. But on the other hand, it looks like through this kind of challenge that you've gone through with your peers, you have done the collaboration throughout the whole globe. Because I do know that when we were assessing the students' final assessment on the group presentation they've done on the digital marketing module, students were actually presenting from different parts of the world simultaneously, synchronously online. So that was quite impressive. And I believe also, to build your capability to reach to that point, you have practiced using different collaboration tools, but at the same time you supported each other, even though you are obviously remotely connected. So thank you very much, Vivian, for your elaboration. And Anne, would you like to tell us your story?
Hannah.
So Hannah.
Sorry, Hannah.
So I studied graphic design at the University of Lincoln, and I just to tell you a little bit about myself. And I won a student design award whilst being at the university, and I'm also a people design awards mentor. I work on campus at Global Opportunities Office, and just to reflect on like my experiences of DSAG, I think it's given me like a lot of opportunities to attend like different conferences, to create my own digital content, and also reflecting on learning loss and learning gain. I think I can agree with Vivian because of what she said, it was more of a learning gain rather than learning loss for me, because I was trying to look at it more positively and optimistically, and obviously embrace the technologies that our lecturers have suggested to us, and embrace the collaboration online. And I think the whole experience kind of made me more focused and kind of just willing to engage with everything. So I've learned a lot of transferable skills through things like blog writing, which I haven't really considered before actually doing my digital marketing module, and also learning about digital content creation. So I think all those sorts of experiences kind of like made it more of a gain for me than a loss.
Okay, thank you. You sound so positive, and thank you very much for both of your contribution and elaboration. And I think coming from where you're from, I'm able to see that both of you are aware of the opportunities that actually, this type of online learning or online education opens up for you. And both of you have demonstrated really positive attitude and really engaged with your learning, not only through your program study, but also taking that opportunity and engagement with outside the university, and taking what you've learned to apply in a context that you can demonstrate to your future employer what you have created whilst you were studying in University of Lincoln. So that's very good. Now, Hugo, I know that in your current study, you've chosen some applied science subjects as well as business subjects, haven't you?
Yes, I have. That's right.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, do you have any questions for these two postgraduate students that perhaps take this opportunity, ask them the questions, and then that probably will give you some ideas about what university study is like when you're ready for next year.
Yes. So understanding how the study had gone through maybe this quarantine, was it difficult at all, or was it any easier, or how hard did you find it, or was it easy at all?
Hannah, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can if you want. But I think for me it was obviously it's taken me time to adapt to everything. Just because I knew that I couldn't like see some of my friends at the university have left to go back to their home countries, which was quite sad. But apart from that, I think I kind of started getting into this digital learning experience more. It made me, like as I said before, it made me more focused and made me kind of use my time more better, and thinking about also like productivity strategies whilst working kind of at home. But it also kind of made me think about the fact that like you're constantly on the computer all day, and you have to think about ways of giving yourself breaks from work. So I think the experience has been quite easy, but again, I was like trying to think about it more optimistically. And I guess what I'm probably would have like missed is like social interaction that I've had whilst being at the university.
Yes, and yeah, for me, actually, the at first is quite challenging at first because I'm an international student, and a lot of communication had to take place in terms to to contact with the teacher about our module and about our also about our life as an international student. I get overwhelmed with a lot of emails at first, but I think that I got a lot of support from the student side, from the university side. For example, I get support from academic experience from the career employability service. Also, like even if I have something about mental problem or mental health, I also had the app. Our university has some kind of an app to keep track of our mental health, and I think it's very helpful. Also, like Hannah said, I think I kind of prefer the experience because I have more flexibility to take ownership of my experience and design my own learning online course skill, something like that. So I think the experience is quite enjoyable. It may be challenging at first, but yeah, I kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, it's good that there's a lot of support around that as well.
Yeah,
It sounds like
it
all
is.
this positive experience will make Hugo think actually university is somewhere that you really probably are looking forward to going to.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good time, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Very good. So thank you very much, Hannah and Vivian, to provide Hugo with this really positive picture about what's university at the moment is like, and then what your learning experience has been. Okay. So moving on to our educationists. So Glan, you are the head teacher of Queen Elizabeth's Grammar School in Alford, and this is one of the best school in the region. So in terms of the digital education, obviously with 450 years history, the school must carry a really good tradition in terms of teaching methods and also how students obviously hold that strong and traditional way of taking very seriously about their learning experience. So would you please share with us how you see digital education from your school?
Well, for us, I think you alluded to a couple of the bits and pieces there. We've got a very strong ethos within the school, and culture for us is tremendously important, and pride in the school and pride in themselves. So we've been able to tap into that quite heavily, and we've got a big success culture within the school. Where student successes are recognised and we celebrate them publicly. And we've just found more creative ways of how we do that by writing to each parent weekly and by emailing them all of those successes. I've done more head teachers commendations through the course of this, and I think I've done all year before that point. And we had a very strong, well-established home learning culture and a platform that was custom built within the school to meet our purposes. So when all of this happened, we were in quite a strong position to be able to just roll it out and push it on to stop that lag time that Hugo described. Even though it was just a couple of days, we were able to just basically flip over to our home learning platform straight away. And then over a period of time, we then also augmented that with Microsoft Teams, not dissimilar to class charts in how we've actually used it, to the way that Hugo's described it, where we're setting work, streaming various bits and pieces, being able to have small group discussions, but mainly setting work and the marking of work that we've done within school. So it's been interesting in how we've actually put this across. And again, just going back to what I was saying earlier on about the variety, hearing your students, it's good to hear that they've had quite a positive experience through the course of this. And what I've found is that many students have had exactly the same positive experience. What I've also found is that as you go down through the year groups, that emotional and that academic maturity is still something that we're working on and developing. So, further down the school, some students found it a little bit more difficult to maintain the same level of pace. And also, that disruption. You think about my current year 11s and my current year 13s, who are all geared up and ready to sit their exams. and they just had that taken away from them. You would think, brilliant, you're just getting your exam results given to you, but they didn't want that. They wanted to go in after all of those years, after they've done all of that work, to prove what they were actually able to do. So, we've had to manage that situation, and our entry into sixth form with students. There's been a lot of different factors that you just have been thrown out of the back of this that we've had to consider and think about. I've also speak to quite a lot of colleagues in other institutions, and I think one of the things that we're going to see off the back of this is a bit of a social divide as well. I'm working in an institution that's got an awful lot of high ability students, but I know that people from disadvantaged backgrounds have had a bit of a learning lag, whereas I know that some of my students have, as a couple of you talked about, have actually moved forward even quicker than they would have done within school. But I think it's a continuum. And because of the lack of choice, people haven't been able to choose which type of learning suits them, and therefore, that's created a divide in terms of progress.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Glen. It sounds like your school has made a lot of effort with the combined collaboration from the staff members as well as the students to make the transition between home learning and school learning really seamless. And this kind of disruption has been dealt with very effectively.
I wouldn't go as far as seamless. We've had one or two bumps along the road. This entire process has been not without its challenges. But I think the point that we've got with this is that you see a challenge, you see what the problem is, and you try and design something to try and make it work. We're just going through the process of what September looks like and how we open. And at the moment, we've got the management of COVID within the reopening, and we've got to manage that, but we've also got to manage fear. And that is a bigger aspect than any that we've got to do. And our normal levers of leadership that we would have in a school, like quality assurance, how do you actually ensure that you've got consistency across all your staff? Normally, I would walk the corridors and I would drop into a classroom and I'd sniff the air, as it were. And at Hugo, I happen to work in the school that Hugo's in now, and he will have seen me stomping around the corridors many times over the time that I was there. That's how we operate as leaders. This wasn't set up. We didn't actually know each other was going to be on here. But that isn't in place now. So our method of being able to quality assure and make sure the consistency across all members of staff is of the standard that I would want it to is a lot more challenging.
Yeah, I think the process, obviously, the smooth running and operation of the process requires everyone singing from the same hymn sheets. And whilst we have all these challenges, I think in terms of the perception, in terms of capability, in terms of the vision, as a senior management, the director of the school, head teacher of the school, you must have done a lot of work with the support of your colleagues to make the transition for the students as smooth as possible. And I totally agree that it may not be seen as a seamless transition. However, I think everyone's effort putting into this process to make the transition as smooth as possible will make an impact for the school leavers as well as for the students coming to your school.
There's no denying the effort. It also comes down to the economies of scale. When I think about a normal class, if I was sitting in front of Hugo's class and I was delivering that lesson, I'd be delivering it to 30, 40 students, and then I'd move on to the next class and have another 30 or 40 students. All of a sudden, I'm setting individual work, which is coming into me, and I'm getting 30 individual responses coming back that then need to be looked at. So, in terms of how long things take, our systems and our practices are built for a different model. And, the move across to another model is an evolution process rather than a standstill. We're making a change from one thing to the other. So we've kind of seen us drift towards a more workable solution as COVID's gone on, because we needed day one, we needed something in place day one. And then by the time you get to day 80, day 90, day 100, your processes have developed, they're more robust, people have got into a routine of working, we've managed to get some training in place so people are more aware of how to use the platforms that we're using, and it's kind of improved over time, and then you've got to think about what comes next.
Yeah, thank you. And I think obviously your school has the sixth forms. So yeah, for students who are currently doing A-level, They will be getting their results soon. And then moving on to the university, if there's anything University of Lincoln can help to open up the window for the students to observe what students teaching and learning is like, then let us know. We can help. Okay. Thank you. Right. Okay. So last but not least important, James, would you like to share your view about digital education and blended learning, if that's the terminology that in FE colleges that you currently use within Lincoln College?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Chang. Yeah, it's a very interesting points Glen made there, and some I absolutely can concur with, and I'll pick up on as we go through. So yeah, as you can see from the badge, you know, and the picture, this is Lincoln College, but we operate out of Newark and Gainsborough as well. So there's a challenge there anyway because of the geographical spread, and Newark actually being in a different county, but also, as we talked about earlier with digital divide, that also the geographical distance also brought its challenges in the current circumstance. I put our mission statement on there because this is, you know, what we can default back to, and this is, you know, the focus we give members of staff to keep going back to, that you know, the employer-led, but they're producing the highly skilled, productive workforces. So it's about the skill development in our learners, and our learners go from level entry 3 all the way through GCSEs and A levels and BTECs levels 2 and 3, but up to higher education, and we've actually got a first year of a master's course running this year. So we've got a massive spread of curriculum there, which again brought its challenges. I would kind of conclude with Glen there that the lead-in time to lockdown was very short for us all. We did some preparation in that, and, you know, had some sharing of practice and some very quick kind of training for staff on there, and indeed we've continued that in the ongoing sense whilst we've been locked down for staff to aid that digital skills, digital pedagogy. I think it's been an interesting observation of mine, having been here for a few years. Staff have been willing to adapt and change through the years and try new things. But as Glen alluded to, you know, we're set up for a different form of delivery, and people would tend, not always, but tend to go back to that, you know, traditional sort of approach. And I've kind of used this comparison before, but if you've seen the film War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise, where at the early stage where the lightning bolt comes down, it hits the earth, and it kind of awakens the aliens and they emerge. Now, not for a minute saying the staff here are aliens, but it was a similar sort of approach in this lockdown situation. Actually showed people what they can do and what they can achieve and what skills they actually have. You know, people would say, well, I don't really want to do that kind of distance learning or blended delivery in the past, have realised actually, no, I can do it and it is possible. So there have been some real lots of positive stories coming out of there. But there's still a way to go with that kind of evolution of skills. How that's looked across the piece has been different in different areas. You know, we use the term blended comes out a lot. I personally have a bit of an issue with using that as a catch-all phrase. It's not for me. There's kind of a digital strategies, and blended is one of them. But I think that one of the key positives we've seen through this experience, and something we're certainly going to take into the future, is that notion of asynchronous learning. So rather than all being in you know, one learning environment at a time and learning from the person at the front, that notion of accessing learning when you can, when it suits the learner, has certainly in lots of areas really benefited a lot of people. And as I say, huge spread of ages. We have apprentices in our provision as well. Adults who have families who are part-time, so that really suits them, which is good, and something we've learned and benefited from. The quality assurance aspect, I had to raise a smile at the smell in the air. I think that's a great way of putting it. In usual circumstances, somebody like myself or another head from around the place would just get away from the desk, go on a learning walk, drop into a classroom, say hello, see what's going off, come out again, and it's that easy. In the digital circumstance, it's really not. And we've worked a lot in the last 2-3 years to move from a model of kind of observation and judgment to a model of collaboration and coaching, and that moving from a fear to a faith about, you know, what a learning walk and observation is. And that's been really, really difficult in digital circumstance, because immediately if you say, well, can you sign me into that team session, it feels like you're going to observe again. So we've tried to back off from that, give trust, give space to our staff to do what they do, whilst looking at the key indicators in the background. So actually, what is attendance looking like in that online session, and what's participation like, and the learners uploading the work, is that as you would expect? So not looking at the actual delivery as such, but more the product at the end of it. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. The pictures you can see on there, yeah, the middle one, a lot of people have used Teams and similar platforms, and pictures like that are pretty synonymous these days on social media. But that has worked well, and lots of positives coming out of that, including using the chat facility, almost running 2 sessions in one. That seems to be a real positive. You know, those who wouldn't normally engage in a class session and actually ask a question are doing so much more using a different way. The middle picture there, again, these aren't learners, just to say, it's just from our marketing stock of pictures, but this is, I just want to pick up on the pastoral support. We've maintained that and had to maintain that in a lot of situations for high needs learners, but that has gone pretty well. And interesting, I'll be really interested to hear the views of students after this, but we found in a lot of circumstances that in one-to-one engagement with pastoral support has been a lot better in the digital circumstance. Learners are far more happy to engage in a conversation with their tutor or their progress coach when they're doing it through a piece of technology on their phone rather than face-to-face, which staggered me. I really thought, you know, you'd need that human interaction and being in the same room and read body language, but apparently not. Some of our learners are much more comfortable to do it through their device. Biggest challenge for us in many areas, last picture there, you know, a lot of our provision is vocational, so it's about practical skills. And how can you do that in a digital environment? 9 times out of 10 you can't. So we've been working on plans to get people back in. You know, 15th of June we have had learners back in, albeit in smaller numbers, very highly planned, and safety huge consideration, obviously. But our biggest challenge is how you prepare people for the skills that they're going to take into industry. And lots of qualifications. It's about professional accreditation, so we can't give them their qualification unless they do it. So it's about preparing them for that and bringing them in now and over summer to finish off. So yeah, lots of challenges, lots of positives as well.
Thank you, James. That's a very, for me, it's a very detailed picture you've presented here about how Lincoln College has coped with COVID-19, and with obviously your title as the head of quality improvement. This is something in terms of the quality assurance that you have always kept in mind in making sure the online learning as well as the face-to-face learning will take place with high quality. I think there's many interesting threads that you have emerged from your description. And I think from the quality assurance perspective, I think obviously you started to look at a new model of quality assurance, look at more on the collaboration of work, and perhaps data and analytical sort of resource that you can look into to ensure the students' attendance, ensure the students' learning actually taking place. And all these areas would be something that I think in higher education sector we're interested as well, and it's something we need to work on. And also I think you mentioned about the college is open on the 15th of June. University this year we're opening, the new term will start in October. So from your experience of preparing into welcoming the students coming back to the campus and getting back to their classroom, and then having those face-to-face sessions, but obviously in a smaller scale, can I just ask, are you preparing the online and face-to-face simultaneously, and it will be run paralleled to allow all students to access?
Yeah, so the learners we've had in since the 15th of June have been all been practical. So they've been based in workshop scenarios, whether that be carpentry, whether it be engineering. In preparation for that, so going back to kind of March, April time, yes, the schemes of work and curriculum was kind of redesigned to prepare them as best they can using the digital methods for their return to do the practical. As I say, it was challenging. In terms of September onwards, the new academic year, yes, we're looking at a blend. DFE guidance currently is saying everybody has to come back. We're open as usual, but with safety in mind. So we were looking at obviously reduced numbers in class. So that means extra classes. So to pick up the burden, if you like, so that's probably the wrong word, but to pick up that time, yeah, we're looking at digital ways of doing things. So remote learning, we're moving to Canvas. We're currently on Moodle as a VLE platform, but we're moving to Canvas. So much more interaction on there. And for me, again, this goes back to challenging traditions. Previously this concept of flipped learning, the transmissive information that may come across in a standard, in quotes, lecture. Here's information, learners go away and do something with it as homework. We really need to turn around, and we have been doing for a couple of years, but this is a golden opportunity to really hammer that message home now and embed the practice of the transmission data that somebody can effectively get from a book or from a video. Yeah, do that in a digital sense before you come to college, and that's where it's applied in the practical sense. So so it's a challenge for us, but it's also a great opportunity, I think.
Great, thank you, James. And I think, Glen, in your school, in terms of welcoming students coming back to the school in September, will you have the full groups of students coming to the school, or would you have the online and offline bit of mixture of both?
Well, the guidance for secondary schools is that we open, and the only way of being able to deliver a full curriculum is to open lock, stock and barrel. And I also think that within our community, if we didn't present that opportunity for students, we would come under an understandable and justifiable significant amount of criticism, because most parents want their young people back into school for a variety of reasons. Like, just to pick up on a point James was making about the pastoral care and about how students have been able to access various bits and pieces. For me, throughout the course of this, it's been the unknown that's worried me. Just as an example, before all this happened, I was walking past a student in the corridor who was looking different from the way she normally does. And I was able to just take her to one side, have a bit of a conversation, and work out that there was a problem, just from those non-verbal cues and that body language stuff, because we know our students. And then from that, I was able to put an intervention in place, not something that she would have ever come forward and said, either face to face or anything else. I was able to spot it and therefore do something about it. Those things aren't there, so it's the unknown that is the concern at the moment. But in terms of what we do with blended learning, and again, like James, I'm not overly keen on the term. We are quite well established anyway with our home learning platforms. So what we're going to do is pretty much move back to what we were doing before, having learned some lessons on efficiency and how we deliver work to students, and to make our use of those platforms a little bit more effective. I think for us, because we're going back to a full talk curriculum, there's a capacity issue. There may be a few students who choose not to come in September because of the concern and the fears of COVID, and because they might have underlying health conditions and are still concerned about those things. I'll understand that entirely. But I don't have the quantity of teachers, because our model of education is such that I've got teachers in the classroom, they set work, they mark work, they do all of those things. So to add in an entire another layer of stuff that we'd have to do on top of that would basically burn my teachers out really quite quickly. And I need to make sure that I've still got a functioning school in October, November, December, as well as September. So we've got to be mindful about what we actually put in place and what we don't put in place in terms of available resources. You've got to remember that the cuts in education have been quite significant over a period of time, and we're at the bare bones, particularly as a modest-sized school. So we don't have a load of spare resources lying around to put in extra stuff, regrettably.
Thank you, Glenn. I think from what you and James have described from your own context, it looks like, yes, we all recognize it's an opportunity, but the challenges in different education sectors can vary. And there are limitations of the current business models if we do not look at how we can adopt technology and use pedagogical underpin to use this technology to help us so that nobody will get burned out. And realistically, how can we make our learning more accessible to the students? So we can definitely put the blended learning in a sort of different context, and linking that to digital education, it could mean very differently in different places. Okay, so from the university's perspective, as you can see on the screen, that we have this image of our building, David Chittick building of Lincoln International Business School. Actually, I took this photo prior to the COVID-19 lockdown. I arrived one day early, very early at work, and I saw this really nice image, and I just couldn't help taking this photo. But just, after I took this photo a few weeks later, this lockdown, this image here brings some nostalgic thoughts about our physical working and learning spaces. So the learning after the lockdown, we have very swiftly transitioned from the face-to-face, the physical space, to the online virtual space. Because university, we already have different virtual learning platforms. So the effort we have been working on is to look at our pedagogical underpins and trying to provide very clear online instructions to the students, and using different tools to connect with them, so that we're able to simulate what we're giving them in the face-to-face scenarios to the online scenarios. And I think our students, Hannah and Vivian, would have the first direct experience on this. So would you like to briefly say something here, Vivian and Hannah?
I think university has done they've done a very good job of moving on to those digital platforms quite quickly as well. And to see actually my tutors adapt so quickly as well is quite nice. So we've been using platforms like Collaborate Ultra, but also we've been using Microsoft Teams. And I think Microsoft Teams, I haven't had any experience of that before this all started, but I think now I'm more a proficient user. I know that James said how students prefer to actually have the conversations with tutors online, and I'm one of those students, because I feel right now I'm writing my dissertation, and I have meetings with my dissertation tutor online, and I feel we kind of have this, we're able to kind of establish this really kind of personal discussion about my work, and that's what I think I kind of preferring it so much. And if Vivian would like to tell more about how she experiences this.
Yeah, thank you.
I completely agree with Hannah. The university make a good job in updating the platform very quickly. Before the COVID-19, I would never thought that I wouldn't be so, used to Microsoft Teams. I also use Microsoft Teams to do teamwork. It's basically a very good platform, to share screen and to contribute work to each other. I'm currently doing the dissertation now, but I also have monthly meeting with my supervisor, and I think it's a good. Although we haven't met in normal life, in real life yet, but I have a very strong bonding with my supervisor, and he helped me a lot with my dissertation. Yeah.
This probably mirrors what James mentioned earlier about one-to-one pastoral care. So in university, this one-to-one tutorial or one-to-one connection with the dissertation supervisors is something I think mirrors what James said earlier. I think the online platform and online tools that we were able to utilize nowadays does seem to bring our distance quite closer. Okay, so for the university, it is also sorry, I'm losing my voice. Within the university, it is also a process for us to adapt to these new challenges. And currently, I know, as a matter of fact, all the schools of the universities, excuse me, are working together on this project that's led by our DVC, Professor Liz Mossop. And whilst we're preparing for the new academic year, we're also trying to develop from remote learning, remote teaching, to the proper online digital education, the online distance learning, so that when it comes to the new academic year, that will be supplement what the students will be having on campus. Their every single contact with us will count, but at the same time, the learning and teaching resources that we provide to them will provide this kind of flexibility and agile learning that they can access. So learning will not take pauses, learning will continue, and learning will make this kind of online and offline learning will make some really positive impact to the students. So this adapt and enable framework that we have here, adapt is a shortened abbreviation of activity development and agile planning for teaching, and enable is stands for engaged agile blended learning experience. And this information is on our digital education website that I'm more than happy to post it to our panelists afterwards. Okay, so I think that will be the last question for our discussion today. So what can we do to improve the opportunity to achieve learning gain? It sounds like all our panelists have provided us with some really positive stories from where they're from the students' perspective, from the educationist perspective. What would you recommend to your peers and to your colleagues, the actions we can take to improve the opportunity in the next episode? Hugo, would you like to suggest some, make some recommendations?
Yes, so I feel like we could develop in the kind of platform of class charts, some form of kind of meeting, or having kind of a call or some kind of basis similar to that, where you can almost have this one-to-one or one-to-X conversation with maybe class students and teachers. It can allow some form of brainstorming on work that people may be finding difficult, and it will definitely help some students that are struggling.
Thank you, Hugo. Hannah and Vivian?
Yes, so I would say that maybe kind of trying to bring that social interaction in some ways, like because I think we still kind of like it's not an important element to learning, but it is in some ways, because it helps you to be staying like motivated, and I think from my perspective, so I feel like kind of creating this sort of like allowing for those like engagements, I think would kind of help with learning gain.
Yeah, so I completely agree with Hannah. If there's one big thing that COVID-19 has taught me, I think is that learning is a lifelong process, and I have to take ownership of my learning experience. So particular skill, I think digital skill is very essential, and like the ability to work in teams is very beneficial for me and myself later on, not only in my studying, but also like in my career perspective. Yeah.
And James and Glen, would you make some recommendations on what could be improved in terms of your own sort of working context to achieve learning gain, or help the students to achieve learning gain?
Do you want to go first, or shall I, James? We're being polite with each other at the moment, aren't we? From my perspective, I think the key moving forward is how we share practice between institutions. The thing that I found as a senior leader within a school, both in shutting the operation of this and also the plan to reopen for September, is it's been a very isolating experience. Normally, we've got very good networks between senior leaders, compadres in other schools who are doing similar roles to us, and all of that has gone online at the same time as the learning's gone online. So not only have we had to strengthen what we do to keep the learning up to date, we've also had to sort of work out what other institutions are doing and try and get best practice as best we can. Now, a lot of that has involved, phone calls. I've done countless Zoom and Teams, and God only knows what other platforms. I think I've been on every learning platform going with other leaders from other schools. But it's about strengthening that and working out what other people have done and sharing the things that have gone well, because what we don't need to do is we don't need to reinvent the wheel. The things that Hugo identified as things that aren't necessarily going as well in his institution are things that I know are going exceptionally well in other schools. And I know there's things that Christ Hospital have done through talking with the people through there that I've not done as well here. So if I was to run this entire thing again from scratch with the benefit of hindsight, you would tap into some of that experience. And I suppose the thing moving forward is that the thing that I've learned is that resilience and that adaptability that's so important, and the necessity to smile. At the end of the day, all any of us have been able to do through this as senior lead, as good as it can be from the students in extraordinary circumstances, and we've done that.
Thank you, Glen. Really, really good summary there, and I think. Yes, I totally agree with you that sharing good practice can be so important, linking the education institutions and linking our students, because students are at our heart, and we collaborate and seeing each other sort of good practice in different sort of contexts, and that will hopefully provide us a very smooth transition for the students moving from one institution to the other. And I think at the same time, this kind of transition you mentioned about not reinvent the wheel, but equally I think both you and James have emphasized about the creativity. So how we can use creativity and foster the creativity for ourselves as well as for our students. And that is obviously a very interesting episode for us to observe and to share practice on.
And I think for me, it's working out who's got the wheel you want. That's the key one. James might have one of the wheels that I need to make my particular car run a little bit smoother, and it's working out what that is and borrowing it from him.
Yes, standing on each other's shoulders and helping each other work collaboratively. Yes, we can reinvent the wheels altogether. Right. Okay. James, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, I'd agree with all of what's been said there. Sharing practices is key. I think as well I would say agility of staff. Let's keep empowering staff to do what they do and do it well, and have trust in them and trust in the fact that it's not going to go right all the time. Mistakes are going to be made, but it's a new world we're working within. So let's take stock of that. Give space to staff as well to keep learning the learners and learning central. We've just in the throes of rewriting our learning assessment teaching strategy, and we're saying we are a learning institution. That's something we've put right at the top. So everybody learns, not just the students, it's the staff as well. So let's keep learning as we go, and not jump. I think Glen made a point there about going on various different platforms. There's a danger in this world that we immediately jump to technology, and technology leads the pedagogy, and it has to be the other way around. Pedagogy still has to come first, only enabled by the technology. So that's something to keep in mind, I think.
Absolutely. And I think, James, I totally agree with you in terms of pedagogy should be the underpinning force, whilst the technology can enable us to do many things that probably in the past we can't. But the pedagogical underpin will actually drive us to reach to the students, to engage with the students, and use the right technology at the right time to the right students and for the right learning purpose and the learning outcomes. Okay, so that's really, really good. Thank you ever so much for the views that you've shared. I think to summarize, to improve the opportunities for us, for our students, as well as for ourselves to achieve the learning gain, we started from supporting everybody remotely, and then tapping into different communication channels that we could adopt, that we could utilize, but then engaging in terms of providing the new and development opportunities with the speed and agility. We've heard so many positive stories from different education institutions that we've invited for today's live discussion. And we've seen from the students' perspective how they synchronized their activities with their peers, with their tutors, using different styles, whether it's locally, whether it's regionally, whether it's globally, to even though, at the moment people are still can't really sort of sitting in the same classroom or sitting in the same lecture or seminar theaters. So I think from the senior management perspective and also from the lecturer's perspective, could we say that strategic planning plays a very critical role within the process, and that should be followed by actions, not only from the organization, but also at the individual level to help ourselves, to help our students to achieve the learning gain. So to finish off our today's live discussion, I'd like all our panelists to put something in their wish list. The wish list provides us with kind of like a vision or futuristic thinking about what education will be like after the pandemic is over, or in the next new normal. So can we start from the students? Hi, Hugo, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I just had some.
What would you like to put in your wish list? Is there anything that you would like to happen when you go back to the school?
No, my school's done really well, to be honest, in the way that they've kind of handled this first time of lockdown and understanding how students will need help and how they've overcome what challenges they've been running into. It's been a really good experience. So there aren't a lot of things that I do need to wish for, but that I can't really think of anything now. I did prepare one, but it's kind of not relevant anymore.
Don't worry. I think, Hugo, I think you actually mentioned one earlier about this sort of online session using a certain platform that you're able to connect sort of synchronously with your student, with your peer, with your colleagues, with your peer students in the group, and with your teachers. You did mention that, didn't you? Yeah.
Class charts is the form of platform that we use to educate each other and teachers to contact, but there's no form of call, which I do feel that could be beneficial.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I know that you were not prepared for this question. I'll put you on the spot. Right. Okay. Hannah and Vivian, have you got anything that you would like to put in?
Yeah, for me, like, because we are becoming graduate and we are still continue to explore our career option and search for vacancy. So despite the ongoing COVID-19 crisis, most of the career fair has been cancelled during lockdown. So I would love to see more other options like virtual career fair. That could be a very excellent alternative, because I also know that a lot of maybe not only local business, but also like multinational corporation, they also have, want to hire the talent. So I would love to see more option like that. Yeah, and support from the university. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you, that kind of national connection with the employers, as well as even globally, because obviously with the internet connections, that is absolutely possible. Right. Okay. Thank you. Hannah, what about you?
Yes, I would agree with what Vivian said about maybe like actually, like, I think we had like a live comment actually asking us how did the university, what did they do to prepare us for the employment process? And I think the university has done quite well, because there's I've been using Career Center quite a lot, and there have been like workshops available for us, webinars about how to actually do interviews, video interviews, and how to prepare well for those. But I think the next step would be probably for the university is like to try to kind of provide those facilitate those engagements with like employers. I think that's quite important for us as like future graduates to actually kind of start thinking about this now. But I think so far they have put effort, and I do know that it might be quite difficult for universities to actually connect with those businesses because of the current situation. But I think this would be like on my wish list.
Absolutely, that's a very reasonable wish, and I think from the university's perspective, we would endeavor to meet that kind of expectations, and hopefully we can make your wish come true. Okay, so Glen, do you have a wish list over there, and have you got a wish that you can put into this wish list?
Yes, I suppose my wish is double-barreled. In reality, it's the same wish, just duplicated. I wish I knew on the 20th of March what I know now. The experience gained through this has been phenomenal, and it's been an unprecedented time where we've kind of been feeling our way. And I suppose the other barrel of that double-barreled wish list is I'd like to know now what I will know by mid-end of October in terms of how that return to work will kind of go, because I think all of us who've been leading in education have had to react to a situation that we're not necessarily is beyond our experience, and we've just had to kind of find our way and follow our moral compass, I suppose. Hindsight's an amazing thing in reality, isn't it? And we've learned a lot along the way.
Thank you, Glen. That's very insightful wish. Thank you. James, what is your wish on this wishing list?
Yeah, it kind of follows on the same ballpark as Glen's, really. One of the heads of our provision said in a meeting, I think it was 2 weeks ago, coming out of this, the worst thing we can do is do nothing. And I think she was absolutely right. So for me, the wish list is that we learn and we do something positive with it. Yeah, simple as that, really.
Thank you. And to add on to all our panelists' wish list, I'm going to add my wish list. And I think this wish list has already been conveyed from our university's produced a video. What will our university be like when students come back to campus? So over the summer, we will have some work going on, not only for the online distance learning, digital learning, using our platform, enriching our learning and teaching resources to make sure the students' learning will be seamless and will be having really smooth transition. But at the same time, our campus warmly welcomes students come back. So my wish list is to have this campus back to normal, and then having all these this new teepees that we will be putting in place. Obviously, as you can see, this image is a suggested image. So the teepees will provide a very nice socialization environment for the students, so that there's a really nice balance between the online learning as well as the face-to-face learning, and also they can socialize with their friends, with their peer students and colleagues and other members of the learning community. If any of our audience would like to watch this video, there's this QR code that you can scan from the screen, and you can go to the YouTube straight away to watch our vision is like for the new coming academic year. And that's the end of our live discussion. So very big thank you to all our panelists. Thank you very much for taking part in today's discussion, the live discussion. And I think it's very enlightening as well as inspiring. And thank you for bringing the stories, the compelling stories coming from different contexts you have been working. And also I would like to say a big thank you for the active participation from our audience. The Resilient Lincolnshire interview series will continue every week. Just before we close the session today, may I please let you know that the next opportunity to be part of this series is Tuesday next week, the 14th of July, 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock UK time. And the topic is about 60 minutes on COVID-19, managing triple crisis, economy, health, and the climate impacts, hosted by our own Dr. Shurabani Saha, Senior Lecturer in Economics in our university. This episode is hosted from Lincoln Economics and Finance research group. So please be part of our Business Beyond the Curve and do like us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And you will receive regular notifications from us if you follow us. Thank you very much. And I'm going to bring all our panelists back to the screen. If you just bear with me so we can say goodbye to our audience. Right, okay. Right, okay. So that's the end of our live discussion for this episode. Thank you very much for participating in today's live webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Thank you. Bye.